Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we're talking about my 2022 art goals. This year I have a few things I'd like to work on. I did one of these goal spreads last year and it was really effective. I got everything done I wanted to and I felt like I really jumped ahead with my artwork and I felt like I really improved a lot of things that were on the list. This year I'd like to work on even more expressive faces and more expressions when I'm drawing faces. I feel like I tend towards more illustrative kind of blank faces naturally. One of my goals last year was to work on more expressions and it really helped. I want to make sure I continue that and do more expression studies from cartoons and from live action and also from life studies. To do these studies, I spend a lot of time looking at cartoons like Steven Universe and Star versus the Forces of Evil and Adventure Time, and looking at the very cool, very expressive, elastic faces that they have on those shows. I also love a bunch of those 1920s animations like Felix the Cat and the Spooky Scary Skeletons dance, as well as the Cuphead game that was inspired by those animations. I love the rubber band style animation that they use to get that elastic, expressive look to everything. When I'm doing studies of this work, I pull up a lot of still images or I will watch through the old animations and do freeze frames and take screenshots. And then I'll take one big sketchbook page and sketch all of the expressions and faces that I want to keep for later onto there. And I'll just kind of freehand those. And then I'll have kind of a reference sheet that I freehand off of later. And that gives it kind of an organic transference. I've still got that nice expression, but it also kind of, it tends to lend my own style and my own hand to it a little bit more. So you guys will probably see a lot more of those in the future as I kind of work on studying those more and expanding my expression base even more than it already has this year. The second thing I'd like to do this year is learn how and when to take a break. I spent a lot of time working last year and a lot of time overworking myself past the point of exhaustion to the point where I was burning out pretty bad. I need to learn this year how to take a break when I start to feel like that and to listen a little bit better to myself and take an evening off and do something else that isn't artwork. I've rediscovered a lot of really fun hobbies of mine this last year with bread baking and knitting and crocheting and needlepoint, sewing little doll clothes, 3D printing, a lot of really fun stuff that I can do that doesn't require me to be working or creating art, that adds a lot to my life and adds a lot of relaxation as well. I also have been playing a lot of Switch and PC games, stuff like Stardew Valley and Witchwood, Graveyard Keeper, Animal Crossing, things that are very low key that tend to recharge my batteries a little bit better. This year I'd like to keep going with those habits and I'd like to be able to bake more stuff like cookies and quick breads and muffins, stuff like that. I think I spent a lot of time sort of cooking food for our family that was more nutritional than it was fun, and I want to get back to that kind of fun cooking, fun baking that I love so much. This year I've also discovered a love for reading and collecting comics. I've had a really fun time collecting stuff for research for my graphic novel that's coming out this year, and I collected a whole stack of comics and I've really enjoyed reading through those. So I hope to continue that as well. Another goal I have this year is to build my visual library of greeblies. Greeblies is a word that I have heard Adam Savage use to refer to the tiny extra injection molded parts that come with models. He uses them a lot in model making for spaceships and little extra bits and bobs that he adds to a lot of his models. I think it applies well in the same context to the leaves and sparkles and little dots and stars and stuff that I like to add to my work. I'd like to build a bigger visual library of things to reference there so that I can add more diverse and interesting kind of stylized doodles, I guess. I guess they're little like doodles. I'm not sure what you'd call them, but I like to add them to my work a lot, and I need a little bit bigger library of those right now. I plan on working on this by doodling a lot more little extras and starting up more sketchbook pages. I have sort of been falling behind on my plans last year to keep a really nice sketchbook on my iPad and on my PC, and keep those pages kind of organized and build on them so that I have kind of a little digital sketchbook. That kind of didn't happen because I tended to just forget about it, or I would do sketches for specific pieces and then kind of forget to save those sketches out or do any real like doodling or extra drawing on those. So I'd like to work on keeping that a little bit better, and I'd like to work on building that little repository of doodles bigger. The fourth thing I'd like to work on is more informed variable lines. A lot of my work has these variable lines, brushes that have thick and thin to them, where the ends tend to trail off into thin points. And I really love that about my work, but I think it needs to be a little bit more intentional. I kind of started on this piece here. I want more areas where there would be strong highlights where we have lost edges in the line work. I think that looks really nice and interesting, and I'd like to incorporate that a little bit more. I also want big heavy lines kind of supporting where I want the lighting and the shadows to go. And this kind of represents an area where I need to work on more intentional lighting, even before I'm coloring. When I'm sketching and when I'm doing the line art for the piece, I need to be able to plan ahead and incorporate those line areas so that it supports the lighting. My plan to work on this is do a lot more line art exercises when I'm warming up to work for the day. I have a whole group of line art exercises that I'll use to warm up normally, and I'm going to do a video about those probably next week so that I can share those with you guys. I have a lot of different ones that I've collected from a bunch of different YouTube videos on improving your line art over the last year, and I'm going to kind of compile my favorite ones for you guys to use as well. I'm also going to use the time that I do pieces like this that are sort of a single use, where it's just meant to be posted on social media or for you guys to see here in a speed paint. And then I'm going to use that time where I can spend a little bit more per illustration and really intentionally ink things and make sure that I've got lines that are really informed and not sort of like just baseless variable lines. So hopefully that will help a little bit and we can kind of improve those together. Hopefully you guys will also come on that journey with me. The last thing that I plan to work on is outfits that tell more of a story. I'd really like for my characters and my comic characters, my illustration characters, anything that I'm working on, I'd love to be including more details that tell more of a story. So this sort of little self-portrait character, she's got all of these little pins that I'm actually making in real life. And she's sort of got these like Buddy Holly style glasses that sort of call back to my own sort of vintage clothing style. But these are things that are actually part of my personality and tell a story about me and my sort of past choices. But I'm not very good at expressing those with characters that I make up from my imagination or characters that are for client work, things like that. I'd like to get better at giving my characters a little bit more visual language to their clothing and adding details really intentionally that tell a story about them and give an impression to the viewer about kind of who they are just from what they're wearing. And that's the list of the 2022 goals. I am really excited to work on these. I think a lot of these can be supported by more consistent sketchbook work and saving those together in one place, making sure that I'm spending time every day working on a sketchbook page. Plus, I think that would make really interesting sort of content for Patreon, content for YouTube, whatever that ends up being. It might be really interesting for you guys to see a digital sketchbook flip through. So I'm really excited about that. Really excited about having more little greeblies to put everywhere and even better expressions. I love adding crazy expressions to my work. I think that's such a fun part of it that's sort of emerged this last year. What are you guys' goals for 2022? Do you have art goals? Do you have regular goals? Do you differentiate? Do you do them sort of all together? I don't tend to do a lot of like life goals, but I have found that the art goals really help me out. Any eagle-eyed viewers out there will notice that we used a lot of the parallel line art tool that we talked about in the last video to do the text and the little speech bubbles here. I also used the coloring techniques from my Color Faster with Clip Studio Paint video. This is the little select and fill tool that I've used to color this piece. I hope you enjoyed this video and it inspired you to make your own art goals for 2022. Leave those in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you guys are working on. If you've enjoyed this video, please go ahead and like and subscribe below. And we'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. This video is brought to you by my wonderful patrons, Jessie C., Runner Breyer, Anthony Jutz, and Tara Billie Jean. Thank you guys.